Oh, yeah, wrote it down. Let me get it.
That is you. Yes.
Okay. I was gonna say like, I want to make sure like I know what I'm aiming for. So like, I don't want to do like, say line art and all this other stuff if I'm trying to go for like, I guess EA. Just say that like you're trying to get to EA. How would you approach that? Like when you're looking for like what you prefer. So I prefer line art. So I guess 6 more vodka kind of thing. How would you approach that? So you don't get confused. Like you're not doing line art thinking you're gonna try and work for EA.
Okay, so let's see. California. Okay, here you go. Battlefield? Does EA do Battlefield?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, this is not going to help. Here. Let's do this. All right, so here's the kind of concept art that Battlefield has done. Oh man, it's super epic. Let me see this. Is this concept art? Cool. This is what you got to do. You just got to see what's the peoples are doing. You know what I mean? And obviously, there's probably going to be very little to no line art. You
So
know?
that's like block-ins and map painting, right?
Well, some of this
No
stuff's just
problem.
like, yeah, really just rough concepts. It's not necessarily matte painting. Like if we're looking at this real close, I don't know if this is from the game or if this is official, but I can see how this is useful. Let me show you the other one. This one is definitely official. This is tight. But now this one right here that I skipped over. Where was it? I was just looking at it. I just skipped it again, didn't I? It's fine. Here, let's focus on characters too. Let's do that. Okay. Exploration, character design.
I've seen that guy's work.
I don't know if this guy works there. I have no idea.
I don't think he does.
This stuff is pretty obvious to me. This is the kind of stuff that I was talking about too. But I've seen this too. I've worked for some companies who've done this type of stuff. And line art is not off the table. Battlefield 5, SP War Stories. Wait, is this PR? Art director John, final character concept art for the single player war stories of Battlefield 5. So, I mean, there's line art. Some people doing line art, some people doing photo bashing. Some people are doing painting. That's like you said it yourself too, right? You told me that it's less about how you do it, it's about the idea, right?
Uh-huh.
And I agree with that.
Oh, he's so good, that guy you're looking at. I love his work.
So the question isn't about, oh, I don't want to do line art or whatever. Like, just make good artwork is ultimately what I'm getting across, right?
Uh-huh.
And if you decide that line art is going to just be more useful in certain cases, then so be it, right? Nobody's saying that there's one way that rules them all. You're misaligning yourself with this. You know, you're making it seem like there has to be. Instead of thinking of it like, hey, you know, I'm going to get just really good and I'm just going to learn different tools, you know, and
Yep.
I'm just going to make whatever. Like, I'm going to learn 2D, like, line art, not because it's a waste of time, but because it will teach me another skill to be able to communicate my ideas. Right?
Mhm.
I'm not learning 3D because so and so at a convention told me I have to learn 3D or I won't make it in the industry. I'm learning 3D because I want to have that skill set to communicate my ideas better. I'm not learning how to paint quick like Anthony Jones because I like Anthony Jones's speed, and he told me painting quick is essential. In fact, I have not said that, but let's just say I did. I'm doing it because I want to have another tool to communicate my ideas. You see kind of the theme here, right? I am a true concept artist, right? Like, I am what I like to think of as a genuine concept artist. I think concept art is a great term. So, what is concept? Right? An abstract idea, a general notion, a plan or intention, a conception, right? And an idea or invention to help sell or publicize a commodity. Maybe that last part's not true, but definitely these like first few points, right?
Mhm.
Like an abstract idea, a general notion, a plan or intention. These are definitely what I'm all about that, right?
Mhm.
And then artist, a person who produces paintings or drawings as a professional or hobby, a person who practices any various creative arts such as sculpting, novelist, poet, or filmmaker. You see what's going on here? Like, if I have to, like, if dancing somehow is going to help convey my concept, so be it. You'd be like, when will you ever have to dance? I don't know, maybe for animation, right? I'll actually just film myself moving to show the animator,
Mhm.
what I mean. You see kind of what's going on here, like how I perceive the word concept art, right? And
Yep.
how none of which concept or art say anything about whether you had to do things in line art. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Or it has to be done in 3D. Like, you see kind of the problem with that premise is like, oh, I better make sure. Like, you'll learn. Like, right now you're not sure about it because I get it. You're just starting out, right? You're a bit naive because of your um, early stages of developing this pattern of this new career of yours, right?
Mhm.
It's all normal, man. These kinds of questions, these types of concerns are completely normal. I had the same ones. But as you'll discover, as I did, and hopefully you'll just trust my word on this, and then you'll just move faster than me, right? I had to learn the hard way, right? The hand on the stove type of thing. But what you'll learn, hopefully, or you'll discover, is that when you did learn that 3D, or when you did learn that line drawing, or you did learn that, perspective tool, or you learned that game engine, or you learned that programming, whatever the hell you learned, right? You'll discover that they all help. You know,
Yeah.
your single mastery, whatever that mastery is. Okay, whatever that single mastery you decided to choose happens to be. Okay.
Mhm.
For me, it's character designs, but it has transcended. Now I'm like a genuinely good concept artist, right? And I define myself as such, right? As one of the industry's best concept artists, you know?
Mhm.
And so I could do something in line art. If someone asked me to do line art, so be it, you know? Somebody asked me to do photo bashing, so be it, you know? I'm not like, oh no, I can't do line art. I'll come up with clever strategies too. I had a student who wants to work for Final Fantasy, right? Like the Squaresoft, the guys who make Final Fantasy. And he was like, they really love my line art over there. I don't have any line art in my portfolio, and every time I do it, it's like really hard and it's such a challenge. And it was like, oh man. See, that's the position you don't want to be in. You want to be in a position where you can dynamically move, because maybe you would like to work for Final Fantasy 8 remake or whatever, and it's realistic, right? I mean, pseudo realistic,
Yeah.
But like, maybe you would. You specifically, right? You might find that fun or interesting to try to do, you know? So it seems like the line art would come in handy in that case, in that scenario, right? So the point I'm trying to make then to you is that if you can't even do line art, then that's not even an option anymore, right? And so why would that be the problem that's holding you back? Just something as simple as just drawing better with lines. In fact, it's not that hard to get really good at these multiple disciplines these days. Like for instance, 3D is a great example. Like you might think, oh, 3D is like super hard, like spending like years of training. Now that was once true. It's just not true anymore because of a few factors. One, the ungodly amount of resources that are available for you to learn from. Okay, there's like Blender alone like has incredible, like unsurmountable amount of like tutorials. It's crazy. There's so many. And the reason why is because it's a free software, which brings me to the next point of like least resistance, is that there's no reason why you can't even learn it because there's no cost other than time. Like you don't even have to buy the software, because that would used to be a problem too, where like if you wanted to learn 3D, not only did you have to like learn from like extensive like experts and training, right? You had to spend thousands of dollars to even have the tool to learn from, right?
Yeah.
You see kind of where I'm going with this is like there was a time where line art was the only thing available to us, but now it's just one of many. And of course, photo bashing and using 3D is going to be faster than other tools that you use. But how much faster, and what do you get when you do something out of that? Right? Because for instance, it may be faster to get like a completed idea, but is it faster just to generate an idea? And what ideas? Because I'm doing this painting in a matter of minutes, So is it really necessarily for me to learn 3D? And the answer is yes, of course. Right? It's
Yeah.
just that I don't need to do 3D if I'm just concepting generally, like just like the larger concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can paint it, or I can draw it, whatever is needed, dude. And sometimes I've discovered it is faster to just to concept in 3D, right? Let me give you a great example of something that could be concepted in 3D that's more valuable in 3D, or to stay in 3D, than it is to be in like 2D, right? And it'll be just something as simple as it could be something as simple as modeling something and making something really fast, right? So like imagine that I go here and I want to do something like this, and then I want to do something like that, right? That's pretty good, right? And then if you have some like chops, oh man, I don't have the hotkey here. Damn it. It's not as impressive. Right? There you go. Right. I could see how this is much faster, you know,
Mm-hmm.
than like drawing out a perspective grid. You know what I mean? we can get real tasty, dude, too. Give us some seconds. And there's some other stuff that's coming down the pipeline. Like you could do, you can like bring in materials from like the Megascan library. If you don't know what that is,
Yeah, that's crazy.
so it's like you don't even need to like texture anymore, right? Like things that used to be just like in itself, like it's like this incredibly hard thing to do. You don't have to do anymore, you know.
Mhm.
And then we can add. We can go to the worlds. Actually, let's go here. And again, the key that you're seeing here is this is all happening in manner of minutes, you know?
Yeah.
And I have this philosophy that it's all about oh yeah, it's gonna be weird. Yeah, dope. Let's get this background to be a little bit more creepy. Let's change this too.
Is that a plugin or just a node that has in it?
Go learn Blender.
I'm trying.
Yeah, it's just part of Blender. I try not to use too many plugins. As an instructor, it's pretty helpful not to
Do you
do
have
that.
Box Cutter?
I do, and it's great. But as I just told you, I try not to do too many plugins because as a teacher, it's really helpful to be able to like just get the software and start making stuff, you know,
Yeah.
instead of
And
anyway.
you said you had a student or you've had students work for Six More Vodka. Which ones were they?
A student named Maki, my student Brian. Maki Planis is probably the more notable one. He's pretty epic. My student Tabiso, and I had one more. I think Mulan worked there too, actually, for a little bit. And they all had their opinions. Yeah, they all had their opinions about it. Some loved it, some hated it. That's not for me to say. I'm just saying I just know what their standards are. Anyway.
Yeah. Thanks.
But you see kind of like, oh yeah, AJ, this is not a bad idea of making stuff too, right? Right?
Yeah.
Because if you can go here and then we can do something where we can create a bunch of them, these objects. Oh, I should have done an instance. It's all right. You get the point. Especially like blocking in like an environment. Like this is super easy. But I'm getting really good at this where I can block in. Like right now I'm just going really aggressively because I don't want to open up bridge and stuff. But like I've gotten really good at this where I can start blocking in things that already like look like a finished concept in in Blender, you know? And especially for environments, like it's super easy. I'm trying to learn a pipeline for this for character designs. Characters are a lot harder, just in general. Environments are a lot easier because it's less about designing really unique or really unique materials and objects. It's more about designing unique structures, right? And that's really not that hard either. Or I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Not as hard as like designing a completely new creature or character that does not exist. Materials are not enough, right? You need to get good anatomy, good shapes, good patterns, right? All the other stuff just helps. It just amplifies that.
All right, I got it.
Yeah, it's long-winded,
Just
but
get good at everything.
get good at all things and everything. Yeah. No, I'm
No,
just.
but it makes sense. It makes sense though.
Yeah, it's that you should master something, right? So I understand that maybe you want to like focus in on painting for now. I agree with this. But in the background, you should be learning like how to draw lines better. Maybe like get a sketchbook and that's all you do
Mhm.
with your sketchbook. Like I practice line art too, but I do it literally through sketching on the paper and pencil because it's easier, right?
Mhm.
And I like to use pen. I don't like to use pencil. Not because I don't like pencil. I actually love pencil, um, but because pencil can you can be forgiven for your sins, where pen forces you to draw right the first time, and the value from that is that you start to you begin to build this confidence, and that confidence transcends to painting. So there's a real benefit from doing that. Anyway,
Cool.
yeah, but
Thank you.
you should definitely learn a lot of different tools. That's probably a better way of thinking about it. Not learn everything. Like become a really good character artist that maybe can paint, and then learn some 3D, some photo bashing as it comes. Like right now, I'm trying to learn how to become a good environment concept artist, and I
Nice.
haven't been eating my vegetables and that. I need to do some more like sketches. I need to do lunch sketches that are environment based. Anyway, cool.
Yep. Thanks.
AJ, I have a question that's a
Yeah,
bit,
go for it.
yeah. I have an issue for which I'm wondering if you have any tips. When I start
Maybe.
drawing, especially something that's early exploration stuff, like the things we're doing right now,
Uh-huh.
I usually tend to daydream a lot, so I kind of get lost while I'm doing
Okay.
the designs, and it's something that I start seeing in my designs what I'm daydreaming about, and usually when I lay it to the side for a period of time and I turn back to it, it's like it's not like what I remember. Um,
Yeah, so
yeah,
what's the problem?
the problem is that what I'm seeing in my head is not what I'm actually drawing. It's like not the gap of the not the skill gap. It is a big problem, the skill gap, but it's more like while I'm drawing, I'm not seeing how crappy it is, and I usually catch myself at a later stage.
Okay. So you daydream, and then when you stop daydreaming, you start to see the problems with your drawing. Is that a
Yeah,
good way of thinking
yeah,
about it? Okay.
yeah.
There's nothing you can really do about the daydreaming. That's just what happens. The reason why I say this is because that's what I'm doing essentially, right? I'm talking to you guys and painting this concept, right? I'm not thinking about what I'm drawing either, right? At all. Um, and so what you're experiencing is a skill gap. It's not actually it's not anything more than that. Okay.
Yeah.
So what you need to do more is study more. Okay.
Yeah.
And here's a good trick to understanding what I mean by the words I say. Just just trust that I'm using the dictionary terms. Okay. So if you're like, okay, I just said study, go Google the definition of study. That's what I mean. Okay. And if you go read it, it's like this, it essentially says like an investigation and an incredible analysis of something, right? Not a copy, right? Like you are supposed to be learning. You're like really there to learn something. You are doing an extensive investigation, you know?
Yeah.
And so right now, when you are designing, if you are daydreaming, then you're not designing, you're just painting. And when you're just painting, you're just going to let your painting do whatever you have in your mind. And if whatever is in your mind is arguably not good, then you need to stop doing that. So you need to study more. But let's say you need to work and you don't have enough time to study. because you studied a lot already, but now it's time to work. That's what reference is for, right? So then you have to just constantly check in with yourself. So put a timer, like I mentioned before, right? Putting a timer stops you from like daydreaming too long for too often, right? But you ultimately still need to practice. That's just going to like study. I mean, you're just going to have to do that. Okay? So that way you can start to get these types of things out of your mind, okay? And onto your paper. Now, this idea of like it's not what I've seen in my head, right? That's because you don't see anything in your head. It's just an imagination. Okay?
Yeah.
Like here's a cool way of thinking about this. Like, have you ever like read a book and you just like saw the amazing visuals of the book, and then the movie came out based off of the book you read, or a story that you read, and then when you watched the movie, you're just like, that's not at all what I saw, and they didn't do it service? Or have you at least experienced this or seen people experience this?
Oh, I've experienced it all the time with
Okay.
most
Yeah.
with everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Because your imagination has no budget. Okay. So when they say like in Harry Potter that he's walking into a building that has like a building that's as tall as the mountains and as high as the heavens, or whatever the hell they describe it in the book, right? You might imagine it being like this high, when in reality maybe the author meant this high, you know?
Yeah.
You see what I'm getting at? So your brain will have these expectations, you know, and this imagination. And also, you know, another thing to consider is that like even when you know what things look like, because when you see them, you know that they exist. For instance, like a dog, like you know what a dog looks like. And what I mean by you know what a dog looks like, I mean that if I showed you a picture of a dog and a cat, you would know which one's a dog and which one's a cat. That's what I mean, that you know what they look like, right?
Yeah.
But this is something you should understand too, is that you don't understand why they look like that. That's different. Okay? You don't understand why a cat looks like a cat and a dog looks like a dog on a very specific level, right?
Yeah.
Because if we were to play this game, it's like this experiment of like thinking about how we would describe things to an alien species. Let's say an alien species just showed up one day and we were just trying to explain to them what a table was, okay? And we're like, oh yeah, it's like this kind of wooden plank with 4 legs, right? And you put stuff on it. And then they're like, oh, like this? And then they point at a chair. You're like, that's a table, right? And you're like, oh, no, that's not a table, that's a chair. You're like, well, why is that a chair and that's a table? It's like, well, the chair has like a back, so you can lean your back on it, right? And it's a little bit smaller, right? And then they see a stool and they're like, oh, so that's also a chair. And they're like, no, that's not a chair. And like, oh, then it's a table, small table. Like, no, it's not a table, it's a stool. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you see how when you start to actually understand how things are, it gets a little bit more complicated. There's this like really great experiment for game development where they would have you describe how to make a peanut butter jelly sandwich. You know?
Yeah.
Like, and the goal of a game developer to make you do something like so weirdly mundane, the strategy behind that is that when you do something like all the time or something really simple, you don't necessarily think about the steps, right? And then when it's time to do all of the steps, you're like, oh yeah, you just get some bread, you put some peanut butter there, and you're good. And then the person's like, okay, but where do I get the peanut butter? And where did I get the bread? You know, where and how do I spread the peanut butter on the bread? You see what's happening? Like all of a sudden, something that you felt like was so simple, like, no, of course you have to get bread, dude. Like you just gotta assume that they know nothing. Okay. And so getting back to this idea, now with all of this in your mind, think about it that's how you are when you're designing, but just to yourself. Okay. So in your mind, you're like, oh, I get it. I know what I'm doing here. And then you start doing it and you start daydreaming. And your brain's like, no, we don't. We don't know what an arm looks like, dude. Like, or I'm sorry, we don't understand what makes an arm look like an arm. We don't know, I mean, show us a picture. Yes, that's an arm. Got it, right? But to reconstruct one from scratch, bro, we know nothing, dude. What are you doing? It's a lot easier to use something a little bit more complex or abstract, like calculus, as something like, oh, of course I don't know what calculus is, right? Because I didn't practice it or study it, Now think about that. What makes you think that you didn't practice or study what it makes an arm look like an arm? Like from just looking at it, right? We learned all of that stuff when we were kids, right? Like what things look like the things they are. The problem is all of that has been like basically etched away in the back of our mind. So your brain, whether you know it or not, is functioning without you even knowing. How do I know this? Are you breathing right now?
Yeah.
Is your blood being pumped through your veins? Is your organs? Yeah. Are you able to feel the ground beneath you? That's like part of your brain's functions too, is to help mitigate some of these organs. Some organs are automatic and some organs are not, right? Your muscles are moving without you knowing. You're not controlling every muscle fiber, right? With your brain. Like consciously you're doing it. Your brain is doing it though, right? There's this idea like phantom limbs. I'm sure you've heard of this, where people lose their limbs and then they like get like a phantom arm or something, but they feel like it's their real arm, even though there's no arm attached, right? It demonstrates what I'm talking about. Like our brain is like pretty complex, okay? It's doing stuff, And so what you need to do is to teach your brain like how to draw and paint, okay?
Yeah.
Like behind the scenes. Like I'm designing and I'm making this art, right? Like, and it seems like a magic trick. Like how the hell? Like I can't even draw without like real focus. It's because drawing for me has become as simple as like walking. Like how you walk and talk. I can draw and talk. It's the same concept. And just like with walking, there was a time in your life where you didn't know how to walk, right? I don't know if you remember this, but you couldn't. But over time, you practiced it and you did it enough. Now you're walking like a champion. And I'm sure you can walk and talk at the same time, right? Awesome, dude. But trust me, as someone who's had kids and watched my multiple kids learn how to walk for the first time, you do not know how to walk right out of the gate. Okay? It is a real challenge. My kids still kind of don't know how to walk. And then when you start to learn how to walk, right, then you know how to run. And then when you know how to run, you can start to learn how to jump and like do some more extreme stuff. Same with art. Like once you learn how to do some basic anatomy, then you can start doing more complex character design. When you start doing more complex character design, you can start exploring more complex materials and stuff. You see how that works?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing. So when you say you daydream and you go into this different world, and then when you come back and your art's garbage, that's just because your baseline knowledge of art is not good enough. That's all that means. Okay. And you need to just practice and study more. Like you need to practice anatomy more. You need to practice forms more. You need to practice perspective more. You got to practice. And you should be practicing all the time, even during my class. It should be a habit. Okay. And when I mean practice, I don't mean like you practice the characters for my class. Like you practice stuff that you think is going to be helping you with that stuff, but are things you're not good at yet. And then alongside practicing the stuff that I'm telling you directly to practice.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks.
All right, cool, dude.
Hi, can I please go?
Yeah, go for it.
I have it's a very simple question coming from a person who has never painted, okay? So even though I have practiced drawing quite a bit, if I had to paint and shade, I wouldn't know how to approach it. So it's more about if you can recommend any tutorial or any resource. So I have a little bit of a mindset before I go into the painting process, like the very basics.
Okay. So if you're just trying to get started with basic painting, the first thing you need to do, if you want to get better at painting in general, is to start thinking in shapes more aggressively. Okay. Now, when people draw with line art, the thing with line art is that you're just drawing shapes, right? But with painting, you're painting shapes, right? And shapes is really what makes everything look like what it looks like, right? Like line art is just a half step there, right? Because you're eliminating a lot of other complicated shapes, right? So
Yeah.
so let me give you an example. So like if I'm drawing a person's head, right? And I'm drawing the shape of their head, whatever. Right? I'm just drawing like a head or whatever. You know, it's just the shape of a head, you know? With painting, you have to be able to draw the shape of the head along with like being able to draw the shape of like the light. So something like along the lines of this. Of like how the form will hit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And this is much harder because you're now adding another complexity to the shape that you have to draw. Because before you were just only focused on drawing the shape of a head, but now you have to draw like the shape of the head and the light, and then also the shape of the shadows, right? And so on and so forth. It starts to get really exponentially complicated, right? When you start to add in a massive amount of different objects and shapes that you should be drawing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So the best way to practice is to practice this, is practice drawing just simple shapes and painting simple shapes. Like I would start with like cylinders and cubes and such, you know? And then being able to paint a more complex cube. Maybe like a cube has a spear cut out of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. Back in Blender. So like something like this. Actually. All right, that's fine. And then like, so this is a little bit more complex. Oh. And then maybe we can, yeah, let's get something a little bit more dynamic. Yeah, I thought I had a hotkey. Ah, yeah, there's the hotkey. What? Why wasn't it working before? Weird. Right? So you can see how, whoopsies, normals, auto smooth. Okay. There you go. You can see how this would be a little bit more challenging than a cube, right?
Yes.
And then if you can start to paint stuff like this, you know,
Mm-hmm.
then it's like a lot easier to paint like a character, obviously, you know? But if you can't paint like a cube effectively or something similar, you know, then you're going to have a real hard time.
Mm-hmm.
So like as a beginner, like someone who's really just starting out, like that's what you should focus on, like really basic stuff. If you want to go basic, start basic.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's lots of tutorials on that too. Type in specifically cast paintings. Cast, like
Cast.
CAST.
Yeah.
Like they do like portraits of heads. Those are a little more advanced, but that's actually a great place to start too. And then there's an artist named Sam Nielsen who has this really amazing like lighting tutorial out there. I'll try to find it. I'll link it. That's a good place to start for beginners too. I'll find that specific link. But yeah, like lighting and painting really well, just in general, is like its own course. You know what I mean? Like
yeah. I know it's not the scope of this course, but I know I'm gonna have trouble when we get to the painting stage.
You definitely need to learn how to paint better to be a better character designer if you want to. Even in photo bashing, like having really good painting skills is going to benefit you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, got time for one more question.
I was gonna ask about painting because I started with traditional painting. I've been doing digital for like about 2 years now. I still seem to struggle with like brushes and like finding like brushes that I like because I think that my brain is still like used to I feel like I've transitioned a bit more into digital stuff, but I feel like I'm still like kind of struggling to find like that right brush that works for painting because I do try and do like some of the environments and I still feel like I can't like find something that works to like make it look like, oh, like this is kind of what I want it to look like. But I was wondering like if you had any suggestions on how to kind of overcome that.
So how do you paint traditionally?
Traditionally I did like oil painting. It was kind of like photorealistic, but like almost like a mix of that and like I'd say like impressionism because there's a lot of like if you look at it from far away it looks pretty real, but up close it's just like a bunch of marks.
Yeah, and then what did you usually oil paint? You paint your own original characters?
I was usually like environments.
Okay. So the answer to your question is within what you just told me. It's just you practice different things. And so it's not the brushes, it's actually you just don't know how to paint your own original ideas as well as you would like. So what you're encountering is a hard one. So I'm going to explain to you a way that will makes a lot of sense, and you'll start to think differently when you're approaching digital painting. Okay.
All right.
Because this is really like a big hurdle for people that come from traditional painting. But just to give you some comfort, like some of the best painters come from traditional backgrounds. So the idea would be just because let's say you're good at oil painting. Does that then mean you can now do watercolors?
No, not at all. They're very different.
Yes. So then whenever you're approaching a different medium, you have that awareness, right? You're not looking for oil brushes from watercolor, are you, right?
No.
So when you come to digital, why do you have that same principle idea? Do you see how that's kind of problematic?
Yeah.
Digital painting is just going to be different, right? You can get paintings that look like they're done in oil, that's for sure, right? But it's a different tool. You have every color in the rainbow at your disposal literally by a click, like a couple clicks, where both oil and water is like the whole thing,
Yeah.
You have every brush that you could possibly make almost, right? At your disposal, again, a couple clicks away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's actually an incredibly powerful tool that can do incredibly amazing things. The proof is in the pudding, right? You look at online, like all the amazing digital artists that make all kinds of crazy artwork that some just can never be done through traditional means at all, right? And some
I definitely recognize that, and I see like I've definitely been like growing more towards the digital side of things, and I'm enjoying it. I just like it's been that kind of struggle I think of me to figure out like how to paint, I guess, really.
Yeah, and so that's one thing. Then you agree with this. That's one revealing of the problem, right? There's multiple facets. I'm going to go through every one of them. It's going to help you out. It's going to give you a better perspective. You're like, oh yeah, what was I thinking? All right. So the second part is the actual skill of it, right? So the sport soccer, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you kick a ball around, right? All right. So you have a goalie, and then you have the forward. The forward is the one that goes and scores goals. The goalie is the one who defends goals, right?
Yep.
Now, let's say you and me are in a team, and you're the forward and I'm the goalie, and we're both the best at what we do. You're one of the best forwards. I'm one of the best goalies. We're both on the same team. We're playing against the same team. We're playing against team 2 or team 1, right? Can we just switch roles?
No,
like,
not
can
necessarily.
Could you be the goalie and then we would win and do really well as if you were still forward? Or could I be the forward with you the goalie and do just as well if we were back to our original roles? No, right? We would do better in our original roles. In fact, we might do a lot worse switching like that, right? In that context. Maybe if we're playing a bunch of average Joes on the street, like I could totally be the forward and be fine, you know? And you could be the goalie. But like when we're going against other elite athletes, players, like you can't just switch, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so that's the same when like thinking like, well, you know, I do these environment paintings in traditional. Now, why can't I do something like, why don't I feel as comfortable in traditional or digital drawing characters? You see kind of the problem there?
Yeah.
It's like more of what I would just explain with like the watercolor to oil painting, but this is even closer. Like I'm saying, like even like in the same sport, right? You can take running. If you're a marathon runner, it doesn't make you a sprinter. And if you're a sprinter, it doesn't make you a marathon runner, right? But they're both running, you know? So digital painting is painting. Traditional painting is painting, but don't get those confused as they're the same kind of painting. Make sense? Like I think you understand this, but really think about it, okay? When you think about this, then it makes it less of a problem. Because then it leads into the third facet, which is the most important one after your mind has been primered with what I just told you. Okay? How often do you practice digital painting? Right? Like genuinely sit down and paint digitally. Like think about how many days a week you do, how many hours a day, you know?
Yeah.
And if the answer is very little, right? Maybe like once or twice a week, or maybe like once or twice a day for like last few months, you know, ask yourself, would that make you a proficient athlete? Right? Like we were going back to the sports stuff, right? And the answer is most likely no, of course not, right? So then when you really think about it, you might not have been putting enough time and effort into digital painting as much as you'd like, or you just you just started, right? And you're just getting into it. So it's just natural to be bad at it at first, right?
Yeah.
And you're also just thinking of it like, why can't I take some of these other skills of me being a goalie and all of a sudden, like, why can't I pick up the ball with my hands, you know, as a forward? You see what I'm saying? It's like, no, that's not the role. It's different. And trust me, this kind of thinking is really valuable, okay? Because what it does is it prevents you from creating unnecessary hurdles. Because you're making it seem like the only reason why you cannot do digital is because you can never get a handle of brushes, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't feel traditional. And I'm trying to say that's the ultimate problem. Stop thinking that way.
Okay.
You created this unnecessary obstacle. Because if you would have looked at it the way we're looking at it now, like, oh no, this is a completely different role. And my art skills, whatever they are going to transcend. They're going to transfer over, but not my technical skills, right? Like me understanding light, color, form, design, you know what I mean? That goes back and forth, whatever tool you're using, right? What doesn't go back and forth is my painting techniques does not go into 3D. You know, obviously that's a really big transition, so it's more obvious, right?
Yeah.
But I don't take my painting approach to traditional because I approach it differently. I can't change my brush size so dynamically, so consistently, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's not something I can do. So I don't even think of it that way when I do like brush pen drawings, whatever. Make sense?
Yeah.
I just go about it in a way where I just try to look at everything as like I don't have any clue on how to do anything just out of the gate, because that's a better place to start versus expecting something to come through because of previous experiences, right?
Right.
Specifically when you're trying something new, okay? Like if I'm like coming to Photoshop to try something, or I have expectations that I'm pretty confident I'll be able to do. Like I'm confident I'll make a monster, you know, like and do well because I've done it so many times. It's just not. It's very unlikely for me to fail. All right. Like it'd be weird if I just showed up to Photoshop and was, all right, I'm going to draw one of these creatures that I always draw, and I'm like, what the hell? How do I even start? You know, like
yeah,
like what's the first brush that I mark? Like what's the mark that I make? I don't have that problem anymore. I used to, but not anymore because I put a lot of training and experience into it, you know? Make sense?
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. So hopefully that gives you some better like philosophy moving forward, you know? Like a lot of times it's just a mentality thing, right? Like you might have accidentally created unnecessary hurdles, you know?
I think I definitely have.
Yeah, because once you start thinking of it like, no, I'm supposed to suck. I'm supposed to not know how to do a lot of stuff because this is kind of my first adventures into digital, right?
Yeah.
You
Because
have
like
that.
even sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because even with 3D, you see this a lot, and this is like not just unique to students and people who are starting out. Like even professionals do this all the time. Trust me. Like they'll do like this with like Maya versus Blender. Like, well, you know, Blender can't do this and that, you know, and those types of people ignore it, and then Blender catches up to them, and now it's like one of the coolest 3D softwares out there. Same thing with like ZBrush and 3D Cut. You know, like this whole tools allegiance is kind of bizarre. Like, don't do that. Like, don't put all of your talent points into your knowledge of like what makes things look good, right? I was talking earlier about like, you know, stop focusing on technique, focus on idea generation, like being a genuine concept artist, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not a person who's really good at photo bashing or line art, right? Like that should be a skill you want to acquire too, but I'm trying to tell you like there's something more valuable that you should try to aim for than those things, right? Those things are just a consequence. Another great example of this is like if you're building a table, you know what I mean? Of course, using power tools is going to be really easy to build and design your table with, right? But like, you know, you can use your fingers and hands and hammer and still build that table, right? Because you know what it takes to build it. That's what's more valuable, right? That like raw understanding of how to build things and how it works. And then when you get those tools, you'll just be even better at using them than someone who doesn't have any idea why they're doing it, you know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead and say what you're gonna say. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna mention because like I recognize that even like time is gonna help with it as well because I've looked back on like my paintings when I first started the course at the old university and it was like, oh, like these are really awful compared to the ones I did like a couple years later. Like it's gonna,
Yes.
I recognize it's gonna take time, but I think that there's like a part of me that's like, oh, like I just want to like get there because I think the digital
Yeah.
for me is like, oh, it's so much faster. I should be faster at this, but I need to like kind of take it slow.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. It is going to be faster, especially for iterating, right? Uh, but it's not fast just to get good at a tool either, right?
Yeah.
But I will say that like something that like learning digital tools and stuff, it won't take as long as you like. Learning the tools don't take as long as you think, right? Like
Yeah.
they're just not as fast as you think either.
Yeah.
Okay, like learning how to digitally paint, like actually being comfortable in Photoshop may only take like a month or two really to get comfortable, but don't confuse that with being a good artist. Okay, that takes much longer. Okay, like the tools, people get caught up on tools, and most people discover this too when they start to practice, that when the tools stop becoming the reason why they suck and they have to actually look at why they suck, you know,
Mm-hmm.
then they start to realize, oh no, I suck because I don't actually know how to draw. I don't know how to paint. I don't know how to design. I don't have a sense of perspective. I don't know anatomy. Like, you know, these are the things that actually make you not good, not your tool. The tools are ungodly these days, you know? And that's why we've outsourced a couple concept artists for this company, and I was reviewing their work. And trust me, even professionals, man, like they are stuck with a process. Like they only knew how to photo bash. Like I asked this person to do some thumbnails, and they were trying to draw them, and it was not good. It was not conveying any ideas that we wanted. And so I told him, I was like, dude, just photo bash the thumbnails and do it really fast and just focus on the bigger ideas. And I did it. I did a demo for this guy. I showed him, like, just do it this way. Like, stick with your strengths, what you know how to do. You know, stop trying to appease the gods. Like, just give us convincing artwork, you know?
Yeah.
And he did that, and he did really well. So this is the guy we were paying, you know, okay? We ended up having to cut some of these people loose because I am not supposed to be teaching them how to do work.
Yeah, no, they should know.
It's the opposite in this situation. Yeah, exactly. Because if I was paying you guys to do good work, then it would be a whole different story, right? You guys are paying me to teach you how to eventually get there, right? So the dynamic is, you're in a safer spot here. You're allowed to fail. You're allowed to make mistakes, right? And have someone in my position to give you some more insight, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're in a job and you're expecting the same kind of relationship, trust me, it doesn't exist. And if it does, that's great. Work for that company. Okay? Where they'll let you start at a very low skill level and then build up to where you need to be, that they have no deadlines to ship their movies and games. All right? Tell me what a company is too, if that exists. Maybe I want to work there too. So I could be learning all day. Anyway, cool?
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Yeah, keep at it, man. You'll see. It's just inevitable. Eventually, you guys will all be badasses. I know this because I have a lot of students, and a lot of my students are badasses. Okay? So you guys can just be amongst them. All right, y'all. I'm going to let you guys go. It was good on you guys. Good stuff. Good start of the class. I think you guys are going to be doing really good stuff. I'm very proud of you guys' effort. Keep it up. Don't be strangers. And I'll talk to you guys later. Cheers, friends, and have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it. Please subscribe to watch more in the future. If you liked the video, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you like this content, you can go to my website, robotpencil.net, where you can find mentorships, tutorials, and a Patreon to get more exclusive content. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in my next videos.